devastated.
I want to see how this ends.
You will.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2021 horror romance with a very dark layer of humour injected into it, Zero Avenue, a film that is directed by Daniel Frey and it stars Brayson Harold, who I believe also wrote the film, and Alison Seco. Now the film focuses on Brayson Harold's character Joshua, who... I don't want to spoil too much. I'll try and be as simple as I can in regards to explaining the film. He is essentially an immortal. He meets Veronica, played by Alison Seco, who is a prostitute. He pays her for a fantasy. They go back to his place, play out their fantasy, but in actual fact, it's his birthday. And he's looking to die. As an immortal, he's had enough. He wants to die, basically. And he's hoping he can kind of get what he needs from this Veronica, and she will assist in this. But he also believes that she's almost like the reincarnation of his mother. It gets a bit complex and layered, all that kind of stuff. And as you could imagine, things get complex pretty soon. Right, what are my thoughts on Zero Avenue? Well, it's not an easy film to explain, as you could probably tell. But in actual fact, while I genuinely don't think some people will watch this film and just not get it necessarily, or certainly not enjoy it, it is not what you would describe as a traditional horror. It is, in some ways, a visually and mentally stimulating film. And if you like your films to be inventive and creative and not predictable and full of like traditional horror tropes, this might be a refreshing change for you, because I liked an awful lot of this film. I liked the dialogue, I liked the script, I liked the performances, I liked the way the film looked. I did think it had some pretty interesting visuals. I'm just not sure, like I say, some people will watch this maybe thinking they're going to get what you would describe as a traditional horror, and you're not going to get that at all. In fact, I think one of the biggest failings of this film is I don't think it leans heavily enough into the horror aspect, or even the psychological horror. You almost get the impression, and I did a few times watching this, what's the end game here, you know? What's Joshua after? And there are times when you watch this, and even when you have watched it, when you're not exactly clear. And so I think if the film had been a little more prescriptive in certain areas, then I think I probably would have enjoyed this film a little bit more. I think it maybe tries to be a little bit too clever for its own good at times, which I thought is a shame. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the performances here from Brayson Harold and Alison Seco. Number one, I thought they had great chemistry. And number two, I thought they both gave equally strong performances here. Veronica playing this, you could argue, a prostitute with a heart. Because essentially, again, this is where I think sometimes the film is at odds with itself. She wasn't supposed to stay after a certain point of her visit when she'd fulfilled his fantasy, if you like, in aiding him in his death. But then you also get this reveal that he thinks it's the reincarnation of her mother, and so he does want her to stay. So it's at odds with itself sometimes. And it's one of those films where you're watching it and you're kind of thinking, have I missed something there? Which is why I wanted maybe things to be made a bit clearer and a bit more prescriptive. And Brayson Harold playing Joshua gives a really interesting and layered performance. At times he's really subtle and charming, and at other times he's really intense and over the top. And you know, he's got this scale, and he's all over the scale really. And I thought they both gave really interesting and layered performances that really complemented the film. And the script, and I thought it was a good script as well. It was a really interesting character piece with some interesting dialogue and discussions taking place between these two very different people to some degree. So this really will depend on, I suppose, if you're a traditional horror fan, you're probably not going to get a lot out of this. You probably won't enjoy this one because it doesn't follow any kind of real traditional paths, really, or traditional tropes. It doesn't feel like a traditional horror film in any way. If you're more interested in watching something that's a little bit more inventive, a little bit more creative, it doesn't always hit, don't get me wrong. Like I say, it is a little bit confused at times, and I think sometimes some of the visuals you see in the film are there just for trying to making things look a bit more interesting. It doesn't necessarily add to the narrative of the film. But if you are looking for something different and creative, and you don't mind sitting and watching what at times feels to be almost an experimental film here and there, then you'll probably get a lot out of this. If you're more interested in the process of filmmaking and giving something refreshing and different to a genre, then you may find things here. But there's definitely, this will be one where some people will watch it be like, no, that's 2 out of 10, and other people will be watching it's like, oh, I enjoyed that, that's 7 out of 10 sort of thing. It is, for me, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I do think it comes with some issues, as I've mentioned, but I'm not going to lie, I did enjoy aspects of it too. I thought it was different and refreshing. So thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll be back with more content on the channel very, very soon.